Hi everybody, it's Jay and I'm back in the booth again for another sneak peek video preview of this week's full audiobook release here on Say with Jay. I am in the cat wearing headphones t-shirt, and that can only mean one thing. It's what I grabbed out of the closet this morning. I got no plan for these kinds of things, but what I do have is a very special preview for you today. Not only are we going to do a live reading in just a moment, but this week's new audiobook release here on Say with Jay is Cowboy Falling Hard. It's the 8th book in Jessie Gussman's Coming Home to North Dakota Sweet Romance series, and if you've been following these books and these previews, you know Jessie has been including a dish in these stories, and I've been making it for you. Well, we're going to do that again today, but this time we've got a special guest. That's right, today we've got a special segment called Cooking with Jenna. That's right, my wonderful and wonderfully talented daughter-in-law, Jenna Dice, has agreed to join us to make her amazing apple turnovers. After we make these, and I recover from my sugar coma, I'm going to do a live reading from this week's audiobook release, but this is a slightly longer recipe than I typically do or am capable of, so let's jump right in. So making Jenna's apple turnovers is a 3-step process, basically. First, you've got to make and chill your pie dough, then you've got to make and chill your apple filling, then you've got to roll out your dough and assemble everything and bake. So to start with, here are the ingredients for the pie dough. The ingredients are 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil, 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, 1/8 cup of water, and 1 teaspoon of white vinegar or 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. We're using lemon juice here. Don't worry about copying down these ingredients or the amounts. I'll list them in the description of the video. You may have to hit that see more to get the full description there, but that's where they'll be, so you don't have to worry about copying this all down right now. So the first step is to slice your butter in very, very, very small pieces. Now you want to take good care that the butter doesn't melt or get too soft. You want to start with really, really chilled butter. You may even want to stick it in the freezer for a few minutes to make sure it's good and hard. Then cut it into as small pieces as you can get. While you do other things, you may want to stick it back in the fridge to let it firm back up. Once your butter's cut up into small pieces and back in the fridge, you're going to mix your dry ingredients together. So mix your flour, your sugar, and your salt. Then whisk that together well. Now, once that's whisked together well, add your butter in. Once you have your butter added, you want to use a pastry cutter or something similar to mash your butter into smaller pieces and incorporate that into your flour. The key here is that you don't want the butter to melt. You're actually going for a rather raggedy looking dough at this point. You could use something like a food processor, or you could even, if your butter is cold enough, even try grating your butter, but you've got to be careful that the butter doesn't melt. As Jenna explained it to me, she's just old school, so she likes to use this pastry cutter to blend it all together manually. So once the butter's incorporated really well and everything's really well mixed up, you want to take your water, add your lemon juice to the water, then add that to your dough mixture. This is going to help break down the gluten to keep the dough from becoming too sticky. Once that's done, you can dump the dough out and start to roll it together. You want to mash it and fold it over on itself several times. This adds layers to your crust. You just take each side and fold it over on itself and press it together. Once you do that, you want to form it into the shape of a ball. You can see here it is kind of raggedy looking. You can actually see the flecks of butter in it, which is what you want to see. It should not be a smooth, homogeneous ball of dough. You're going to want to flatten the ball out a bit. And then you're going to want to seal it up in some saran wrap. And put it in the fridge for at least 1 hour. It can be overnight if you'd like, but at least 1 hour to really get that dough good and chilled. So while this dough is chilling, we're going to make our apple filling. That's pretty good, right? Okay, keep in mind this will make more apple filling than you'll need for this batch of turnovers, but it does store in the fridge rather well, and who's going to object to more batches of apple turnovers, right? Here are the ingredients that you're going to need for your filling. 4 good-sized Granny Smith apples. Granny Smiths really add a nice tartness to it that balances out with all the other sweet that's going to be in this. 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. 4 tablespoons, or 1/4 cup, of unsalted butter. 1.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. 1/8 cup of water. 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So while the dough is chilling, put your butter in a saucepan over medium-low heat and let it melt. Once your butter is melted, add your flour and start to whisk that immediately. You want to whisk it until you start to see bubbles appear. You do want to be careful because this does go rather fast. Jenna said you do need to pay constant attention to this. Won't take more than a few minutes. When you do start to see those bubbles, add your water. And your sugar, and stir again until it does come to a boil. Once you do get the mixture up to a nice rolling boil, remove it from the heat, and then continue to whisk until it's calmed back down and no longer bubbling. Once it has calmed down, set it aside and let it cool to room temperature. Very important. While that's cooling, we can start our apples. Next, you'll want to peel and core your Granny Smith apples. And again, you can use whatever apples you like, but Jenna's experience has been that the Granny Smiths have that tartness that really balances out super well with the sugar in the rest of the filling. I can confirm this, by the way. Once they're peeled, you'll want to core the apple and cut them into very small pieces. Because these are going into turnovers and not a pie, they do need to be pretty small. Of course, if you like, you can add a dash of lemon juice to the apples. That'll keep them from turning quite as fast. Next, you'll want to add your apples to a mixing bowl. Add a little bit more lemon juice to stop the oxidation. Then you want to add your 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Again, you can kind of measure with your heart a little bit there. You want to mix the cinnamon in with your apples really well. And then you're going to add your butter and sugar mixture, which is now cool to room temperature. As you can see, at room temperature, it thickens up quite a bit, which is exactly what you want. Then you mix that in really, really well with your apples. Once you have the apples mixed up, you want to place them in the fridge for about an hour until they're chilled. Next, we're on to our final step, assembly. Jenna uses a large biscuit cutter to cut out her pastries. And before we start, we need to make some egg wash. For that, she uses 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of water. Also, before we start this step, go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. First, she mixes the egg with the water to make the egg wash, and then pours out a copious amount of flour onto your assembly surface. You're going to want to flour your work surface, flour your rolling pin really well. Then you're going to unwrap your dough, put a little flour on it, top and bottom, so that it doesn't stick. Then start rolling it out. Because the dough is cold, it is a little stiff, and it does take a little time to roll out. Roll it out until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. By the way, once it is rolled out nice and thin, you can actually still see the flecks of butter in the dough, which is what you want to see. Next, you're going to take the biscuit cutter and cut out as many pieces as you can get. In this go-round, Jenna was only able to get 3. What you then do is pick up each of the little rounds, flour an area that you can set them, put a little flour top and bottom on each piece, and set them aside. After that, form the dough back up together. And using your rolling pin, roll it out again and repeat the process. As you can see here, Jenna was able to get 7 turnovers out of this batch of dough. Next, you want to spread them out on your mat and get ready to add your topping. Jenna wanted me to point out that a tablespoon is about a perfect measure for these. Get a good heaping tablespoon of the apples and put it in the center of each turnover. You want it in as small a little mound as you can get it. You don't want to spread it out at this point. Once you have the apples placed on each turnover, you want to go around the edge of each turnover with the egg wash. Very liberally apply that in a ring around each turnover. That's going to work as your glue when you fold it over. Next, you're going to very carefully just fold each turnover in half, bringing one side over to the opposite edge, making a half circle. Just gently press the edges together and repeat for all your turnovers. Once you're done folding them all over, using a fork, you want to press along the edge of each turnover to seal them closed. You want to press firmly enough to indent that top layer of dough into the bottom. Once that's done, very carefully from the back edge, lift each turnover and place it on a lined cooking sheet. Once you have the turnovers arranged on your baking sheet, you're going to want to use the remaining egg wash to liberally coat each one. Now, the final step before they go into the oven is to make a vent in each one with a sharp knife. As you can see, one of our turnovers there had a tear in it. That's perfectly fine if that happens because that makes an ideal vent hole. The vent can be horizontal or vertical, doesn't matter as long as there's some way for the steam to escape. I'm sorry, I fibbed. There is one more small step. It's optional, but it kind of adds a little bit to it. You can come along behind and sprinkle some more granulated sugar on top of the egg wash. Adds just a little bit more sweet to the crust. Now you bake in the oven at 375 for 20 to 25 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. And the moment you've been waiting for, here is what they look like finished. Doesn't that look amazing? And I promise, they taste every bit as good as they look. All right, so that's how you make Jenna's apple turnovers. Hope you enjoyed that, and maybe if you try it out yourself, you'll let us know how it goes in the comments. Let's jump into this week's live preview reading. Cowboy Falling Hard is this week's new release, and it's the story of Dwight Eckenrode. We met him in the previous book in this series. He was Bryce Shaker's best friend, and he's been coming to Sweetwater because he has found that he is absolutely infatuated with Orchid Baldwin. She's one of the Baldwin sisters who runs the family's, or who works in the family's auction barn. And Dwight has had absolutely zero success trying to catch her eye. Well, he's caught her eye, he just can't catch a break as far as getting her to show any interest in him. So, his friend Bryce decides to help out and introduces him to the Peacemakers. Our live reading is going to start there, and hope you enjoy this little scene of Cowboy Falling Hard. and that you'll come back this Friday to hear the full release here on Say with Jay. This is my friend Dwight Eckenrode, and he would like to use your services. Dwight, standing in the churchyard in Sweetwater, North Dakota, didn't usually shrink away from attention. He was one of the best baseball players in the country, and he was used to cameras and crowds and adulation. What he was not used to was having his best friend in the world, Bryce Shaker, introduce him in such a way to a group of old ladies sitting at a picnic table beside a little country church and having all their eyes widen and look at him like they were trying to figure out what was wrong with him, that he would need the services of matchmakers. The lady with the blue hair spoke. Dwight would like a quilt? Her voice sounded incredulous. Dwight had the oddest urge to laugh hysterically, probably nerves. No. Bryce, the crackerhead, smirked. Dwight wouldn't mind wiping the smirk from his face. This was not something he wanted to joke about. He had been trying for 18 months to catch the eye of Orchid Baldwin. Her family owned the auction house in Sweetwater, and in the last 18 months, Dwight had found every excuse he could to travel from Houston, where he played for the professional baseball team there, to North Dakota, on the pretense of visiting his friend. He would bet he'd gone to more auctions than most people who actually lived in North Dakota, but Orchid never seemed to notice him. Not your quilting services, although we appreciate them, Bryce said with another side smirk, but your matchmaking services. Oh, we're not for hire, are we, Charlene? The lady sitting beside the blue-haired lady said. We might be, Teresa. Hear them out. The blue lady said the words slyly, like she already knew what he was going to say. Despite how serious he felt about the situation, Dwight was tempted to smile. The blue-haired lady was his kind of girl, even if she was 30 years older than he was. Dwight looked around, not wanting to be overheard by anyone else in the churchyard. It was full, with people milling about, but no one was paying any attention to them. I've heard you're quite good at what you do. A little compliment for the ladies wouldn't hurt, he was sure. I've been trying to catch the eye of a girl here in town for a long time, and I haven't been successful. Bryce recommended that I hire you. I'm not comfortable being for hire, Teresa insisted. The other ladies were shaking their heads as well, but Charlene's expression was considering. Are you moving to Sweetwater? Bryce had told him to make sure he told them that he was, but he couldn't say something that wasn't true. People did it all the time, but lying was something he would never be comfortable with. He hesitated for a moment. Charlene shook her head. We don't match our hometown girls with men who are going to move them away. She lifted her shoulder. Sorry. I only hesitated because I wanted to make sure I told you the truth. I have 1 year left on my contract that keeps me in Houston, but I'm thinking about retiring at the end of the season. He might be one of the best ball players in the country, but baseball wasn't as fulfilling to him as it used to be. He was restless, wanted more of something. Felt like his life was empty, a big void that needed to be filled. Come back when you're sure of it. Charlene waved a hand, dismissing him again. I promise, if you help me, I won't move anyone away from Sweetwater. His word is good. I'll vouch for him. Dwight wanted to hug his friend. He felt like his word was good, but to have his friend jump in without him asking and vouch for him made his chest swell. It pushed away some of the emptiness he'd just been thinking about and made him think maybe that's what he needed. someone who believed in him, a town full of people who had each other's backs. He'd been in Sweetwater long enough to know that's what they were. He wanted to be a part of that. He wanted his family to be a part of that. "Which girl?" Charlene asked, her eyes looking sharp and intelligent. "Orchid Baldwin." He glanced around again, not wanting word to get out that he was hiring the matchmakers, or attempting to. He figured the whole town already knew he was interested in Orchid. He figured they also already knew that she wasn't the slightest bit interested in him. Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.